This is FARFETCH Threads, our people podcast, where you can hear the real stories about life as a Farfetcher.
Hello, and welcome to FARFETCH Threads, our people podcast. I'm Amina Mohamed, Senior Head of PR and Communications. And today I'll be talking to Coco Mowinckel, our Director of Brand Marketing Partnerships, and Selina Wilson, Director of Diversity and Inclusion, on the topic of conscious partnerships. Hi, ladies. How are you? How are you doing today, Coco?
Hi, very well. The sun is out in London, which helps. We've had a bit of a rough spring, so it's nice to see sunshine again. Thank you for having me.
And how are you, Selina?
I'm good, thank you, Mina. Really excited about this conversation today with you both.
Amazing. So, ladies, I'm going to ask you a series of questions, and I wanted to start with having you both tell us a little bit about yourselves, of course, and your journey at FARFETCH. Selina?
Yeah, absolutely. So I started FARFETCH last year, actually. So I'm a new kid on the block. I've been working in diversity inclusion for over 15 years. Really interestingly, I haven't come from fashion or tech at all. My career history is really interesting. I started as a teacher on the Teach First programme, working in Tottenham, and then spent a number of years doing diversity recruitment, and then working in a couple of investment banks, actually, working in diversity inclusion across EMEA and in global roles. So joined FARFETCH Group last year, looking after everything that we do around diversity and inclusion.
That's amazing, Selina. Welcome to the team. I haven't had the chance to meet you in person yet, but I'm glad that we have this forum to talk and discuss something really important. So, Coco, please tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, well, I'm a bit of an oldie at FARFETCH. So I joined actually FARFETCH in 2015, so we were a lot smaller, definitely less structured than we are today. Our CMO actually at the time was Stephanie Horton. She's actually just recently come back to the business, which is exciting. Was a former colleague and friend of mine from our days at Vogue together. And she was putting together a new marketing team and needed someone to sort of help grow the brand and start to forge fashion and cultural relationships outside of our own ecosystem. I had spent 12 years in publishing in New York and was itching for a change, having just moved to London. So I sort of jumped on the opportunity. I think, for me, definitely, partnerships, marketing, that whole world was very familial based on my on what I'd done in publishing for nearly a decade. But I think the e-commerce and definitely the sort of innovative lens that FARFETCH has was new, but it was an exciting challenge. And so I sort of joined and haven't really looked back ever since.
Who would? Once you join FARFETCH, you don't go back. So, Selina, you lead the positively inclusive strategy at FARFETCH. Can you explain what that means?
Yeah, sure. So positively inclusive is our umbrella term for everything that we do that relates to diversity and inclusion, or conscious inclusion, which is a phrase that we use as well. And so the really important part of the work that we do is really about the fact that FARFETCH is a global platform, and fashion is a global community full of diverse and talented people. And at FARFETCH, we really welcome this and we really embrace it. And we really believe the power of bringing together this incredible creative community, which is diverse naturally and organically. And that relates to creators and curators, our brands, our boutiques, our consumers, wherever they are around the world. And so for me, having a diverse and inclusive workplace is really critical to our success. And without it, we won't be able to anticipate or meet the needs of this diverse community that we work with and that we want to amplify and support. And so we're really positioned quite uniquely, actually, to increase the visibility and recognise various voices and talents across different groups of people, particularly underrepresented groups of people across the fashion industry. So the way that I look at diversity inclusion at FARFETCH is, what are we doing in the external world and what are we doing in the internal world? And in the external world, that relates to our consumers and our brands and who we partner with. So it's quite related to today's topic. So some of the things, for example, that we're doing is related to how do we ensure that our marketplace and platform include includes and is accessible to a range of social identities and is representative of that global customer base? And also, how are we giving space or dedicated time and effort in the commercial world? So, for example, how are we ensuring that we've got Black designers that we are supporting if they're emerging brands? How are we making sure that we're bringing that visibility to our platform? So that's lots and lots of things that we do in the external space. And just to touch on a few things that we're doing internally, so we call the work that we do in conscious inclusion FARFETCH for all when we talk about our FARFETCHers, our employees. And there's lots of things that we're doing there. So whether it be recruitment efforts, whether that be cultural efforts to make sure that we are embedding inclusive culture in everything that we do, or whether that be related to our people communities, and whether that be related to career development and progression. So there's lots and lots of things that we're doing in that space. And that's what makes it really exciting for me.
Selina, that was amazing and super informative. Coco, what does a conscious partnership mean to you?
Yeah, so I think, Selina touched on so many wonderful sort of points that really, really define our positive approach to everything we do within and outside of the business. I think in terms of conscious partnerships, it's essentially one that cares. It's one that cares about fostering and nurturing young talent, underrepresented talent in communities, our planet. So obviously we have a very big sustainable lens and commitment to everything that we do and say at FARFETCH, one that is inclusive of all genders and races and sensitive and essentially attuned to the world around us. I think it's important whenever I work on a partnership, is driven with sort of a conscious-led mind, it has to have intention and purpose, and that's what makes it authentic. So I guess we sort of say it's cool to care, but I think it's a good one to use, because if it doesn't tick that box, then we shouldn't be doing it. When I joined FARFETCH 6 years ago, our principal core value, which is still within the business, was to be human, and it is to be human. And that is my daily barometer, both professionally and personally. And that is really what defines, for me, a conscious partnership.
Thank you, Coco. On that note, I have another question for you. What advice would you give to anyone listening who's interested in creating meaningful partnerships? And what do you think the best partnerships can achieve?
Yeah, I think it's so important to work with partners that share your beliefs and brand values. You have to be really clear on what those are. And I believe that it is where, once you sort of identify that, it's where the authenticity will shine and allow actually for something beautiful to be created. The focus is to actually truly connect with communities of change makers. And that does not happen in a one-off, but rather through a continued, more long-term approach.
Yeah, I really agree with that, what Coco's just said there, because from a diversity and inclusion angle, what I find is that it's the ecosystem that you create with other partner organizations or communities that care about your vision, or they have a similar vision, and you are kind of working towards shared goals. And it kind of feels like, the best friendship that you can have, because you're kind of constantly not only enjoying working together, but you feel that there's a greater purpose. And so every time that we think about any of our initiatives that we do within Positively Inclusive, it's always about what are we trying to achieve, and how are we both kind of evolving or coalescing in order to get there. And sometimes it surprises you what other touch points you find as you're kind of going through that partnership. And it's that conscious conversation, I think, or dialogue that you're kind of working through that helps you get there.
100%. Yeah.
And I think there's some great examples of conscious partnerships that we have done, Coco. And I don't know if you want to just shed light on some of those partnerships.
Yeah, definitely. I think for the recent partnerships we've done, whether it be Natal or Folklore, we're also working on something with More or Less magazine right now, which has more of a sustainable lens. If we take a step back, you could say that the fashion world has gone through and is actually still going through an important reset. And we need to start taking action on inclusivity and diversity. So once we identified that, and we really started to look out to see sort of who really are who are really the change makers, how do we not just talk about the beliefs and brand values, but show our commitment through partnering with these important voices? So Natal, for example, we did just that. We created a partnership to spotlight the Black fashion industry and bring to the forefront their incredible creative community, which is incredible. And they have such a spot on sort of cultural lens that we, for myself, sort of who sits in the partnership side of things, to even Selina on a more sort of internal side of things, and with our Black employee network. I mean, all of us were truly excited by this marriage and bringing them into the FARFETCH family. Again, there are no one-offs here. This is an ongoing partnership, and it's unique. It's unique in my opinion, from the old ways of working and refreshing. I think with more or less, it is, we share a common ground and a common sensibility that we want to sort of speak about. We want to care, we want to showcase our commitment to changing the way we shop, the way we create product, the messaging around that, so that it is conscious and sustainable and good to our planet in the end. And we have a ton of effort that Tom Barry, who heads up sustainability, can speak for hours on. But it's great. They have a whole community of fashion activists that are now sort of, within the FARFETCH fold. And it's exciting. It's exciting to kind of connect with these communities in an authentic manner and really amplify that positive message that we all want to talk about.
I think that's super great, Coco, especially when you said you don't want it to be one-off. I think one of the telltale signs that, the idea of conscious partnerships and inclusivity is working is when it actually is going to be ongoing. There is, it's no longer just a one-off project. It's no longer a topic, but actually this is so embedded in our culture and in our way of thinking that it doesn't actually need to be a word at some point. That's where I hope and I see the future of, conscious going.
Yeah. It's so new to so many people and it's complicated. It takes more work probably. But honestly, the connection and the relationship is real. And because you're not just having a one moment, a one headliner, and you're going away, which it's not authentic. You can't just say you are committed to being more inclusive and do one thing and then just walk away from it. I think it's the consistency. And what's beautiful about these partnerships that we've done recently, it goes both ways. They're speaking to our community as much as we are speaking to theirs, and it needs to go both ways. And then it's great because they have a wealth of knowledge. They have a wealth of these creatives that we are super excited to kind of bring to the forefront. And it's also kind of bringing to the, to the front and to the foreground these underdogs, sort of the little guys. It's the more niche, but that is intentional. FARFETCH is quite, we've grown, we've matured. And I think it's important to be conscious of that and to help out. There's a reason why we have big brands and there's emerging brands. And there's a reason why we started Folklore, that partnership, because we want to increase and we want to give more visibility to the smaller ones who are incredibly talented. And the same applies to our partnerships on a marketing front.
Yeah, I completely agree with what Coco just said there. It just reminds me of that phrase of talent is everywhere, but opportunity is not. And I think, I feel a strong sense of duty as FARFETCH that we could be really mindful of the choices and decisions we make to bring on people that are completely, full of talent and full of potential, full of ideas that if we bring them along our journey, that they benefit from that and we also benefit. So it's this mutually beneficial relationship that I think that we're finding those moments and finding those opportunities to have a long lasting relationship.
Yeah, Selina, for sure. And I think that perfectly segues into the next question, which is how do you think diversity and inclusion intersects with conscious partnerships? And can you share some of the opportunities or challenges you faced?
Yeah, it's an ever evolving one for me, I think. So I see the opportunities really endless. Possibly too many opportunities, if that's possible. One that comes to mind is a recent one that we have right now, actually, that I'm really super proud of. So I've been working really closely with an organisation called the Fashion Minority Report, if you've heard of them, and they're associated with the Fashion Minority Alliance, which is a non-profit organisation that supports diverse representation, particularly people of colour, across fashion, beauty and creative industries. And it's really interesting because our chief people officer is actually one of the founders of FMA. And so it's great that there is already a connection there. But my role here is working quite closely with FMR, the Fashion Minority Report, in two particular ways at the moment. And the two arms of that partnership is how do we support young talent from diverse backgrounds entering the fashion industry? How do we support them understanding the careers, the possibilities for their own development, developing their own skills and experiences? And so we're doing a mentoring program with them right now for young people. And a great little event that happened a couple of weeks ago is a couple of our Black Employee Network members, our Ben Employee Network. They did a panel session giving career advice to young people, and it was one of the most signed up webinars that they had. And so it's just great that we were able to do that for young people. And that the other arm of this relationship is how are we supporting our current BEM members? So we are doing a mentoring program for our employees of Black Heritage to be mentored by senior folks across the industry. There'll be all sorts of different like workshops and talks and connectivity. So this is all about raising our own employees' platforms and their own aspirations, career aspirations, and making a real difference. And so that really excites me, that it's not just about, doing something on the surface level. It's really about deepening and lengthening our opportunities and being able to give people spaces in order to do that. And really interestingly, the lead at FMR, we're actually working on training sessions for our employees to learn more about being an ally in the workplace. And we're literally kind of co-creating a session. So it just shows you that there's so many different ways in which you can take a partnership if you spend the time to really see what value a partner can bring and what value you can also bring to them. And so they're just a few examples. And I know Coco
we
is
also are doing the event, right?
Yeah, I was just going to say, Coco, do you want to tell?
Definitely 360. Yeah, which is actually kind of cool that everyone in the organization at FARFETCH sort of is, we all are striving to sort of be more inclusive, right? So, and we're working across everyone's, across all of our verticals to ensure that if we can, how do we make something 360? How do we engage, not just in our own sort of internal network, but outside of that? And I think because we have such a strong relationship with Selina and that team and in our people team and with the mentoring program, it made total sense when they approached us, and when Selina and Suzanne, our VP of Comms, approached us and said, how do we feel about an event? So on, I want to say June 12th and 13th, they will be putting together an event called the Power of Festival. And essentially it's sort of the anniversary of Black Lives Matter, where we will actually lead a panel talk with Daniel Peters, and we've identified kind of key talent to speak, those who are within the FARFETCH community. Actually, Natal actually had some great suggestions. So again, it's about incorporating all of these partners that essentially we've cultivated the past year and more beyond that. But to be inclusive and to essentially sort of, yes, we are supporting and it's a FARFETCH event, but why not extend the love and this microphone so that we can amplify it all together?
It's also, it sort of multiplies the change as well, right? Like, one partnership can achieve so much, but then if you kind of multiply that with other partners and you bring people together at a festival, right? Like, I think that is a really great metaphor for actually like the ecosystem of change. And I think that's what really moves the industry forward is when it's not just one voice or two voices, that actually it's a kind of sea of voices that are moving in a particular direction. And I really feel that we are doing that in the fashion industry right now. It does feel very different at the moment. And so it's just quite exciting to see that actually we're part of that. We're on a journey and we're seeing the destination coming closer and closer.
Yeah, I think building that community of change makers is so important. And I think we're just at the start. I think that's the exciting bit, right? So there's so much, I think you touched upon that, Selina, that we could be doing, and it's exciting. I think we also need to remind ourselves that, we want to build sort of authentic, partnerships. So those take time. So you can't do it all. But again, it's that collective piece that potentially allows you to do a bit more because it's casting a wider net. And hopefully that's when we start really seeing that wave of change.
That's awesome. Honestly, it sounds like sky's the limit, right? There's a lot to do. There's a lot that can be done. And I'm really personally looking forward to seeing some of the projects you guys have in the works and what's to come. And this June 12th event sounds really exciting, in line with Juneteenth. So it's going to be something really fantastic. So I have another question for the both of you before we start to wrap up. What do you hope to see more of in the future when it comes to diversity and inclusion within fashion? I'll let you take it first, Selina.
Yeah, no, it's a great question. I think there's a couple of things. I think for me, when fashion becomes really innovative, when it brings technology and inclusion together, I think you can see some really fascinating and amazing things come to fruition. So I'll give you a couple of examples. Recently, I don't know if you saw that Nike did these trainers called Fly Ease, which were easy to put on and off. They didn't have any laces, and it was brilliant for people who may have disabilities or are unable to use their limbs to kind of put their trainers on. And it was literally amazing when I saw that, and so many people rallied round just how awesome that technology was able to include people that were not able to engage in sneaker culture in the same way before. And it is a game changer. And I do think that not only have they flown off the shelf, ironically, it moved the game forward, right? It gave us a new standard. And I think when technology can do that for us, it's used for the greater good to include sections of society, then, we're one step forward, two step forward in terms of creating a kind of more inclusive world. And I think I just read an article actually the other week about a designer who's trying to create a standard for sizing for trans men and trans women. And again, you don't think about that, right? If you're not part of that world, if that's not your inner circle, you don't really think about how our trans friends experience dressing and dress sizes. And so this designer is putting together this kind of universal standard for different body types, particularly in the trans community. And for me, that's amazing and that's really exciting. And we should all be supporting that, and we should all be investing in that, and we should all be kind of amplifying that. So there are a couple of things that come to mind alongside the kind of, things that we've talked about already, right? Like, this is all about representation and making sure that brands, platforms like FARFETCH represent truly how diverse our world is. And, I want to see more Philip Lims, and I want to see more Priya Alawalias, and I want to see more Telfar Clemens, because the talent's out there. It's just that we have to make sure that we're really conscious to find that talent and support that talent and celebrate that talent.
Definitely. And what about you, Coco?
I mean, I feel like Selina just summed it up so perfectly. I can definitely echo everything that she just said. It's 100% more representation from underrepresented communities. It's really opening up that world and using the FARFETCH voice in a positive way. For me, it's 100% about sort of shedding more light to these communities and just building a larger FARFETCH community so that we can truly get to our goals, our 2030 goals, which is essentially to be positively conscious, inclusive, circular. But it's not just about talking about that. We need to actually put into action these partnerships and these frameworks so that we're actually following through with them and reaching our goals.
It brings it back, doesn't it, to the love of fashion and why we're here and the purpose of fashion. Because when you put clothes on, when you put your shoes on, when you engage in fashion, it really says something about who you are, and it's about that self-expression, and it's about that who you want to be for some people as well, right? And if we can make that a world for everybody, that everybody feels when they engage with fashion, that it speaks to them, that it is about them, and that then it makes people feel good. And I think we that's often forgotten, isn't it, in our industry? Actually, let's bring it back to why fashion really matters to us all. And let's make sure that world is real and includes all sorts of people, because otherwise we create a gap between self-worth and self-expression, and that's no good for anybody, is it?
I think having heart is so important in any company, and especially in the employees. And really, I think the beauty of FARFETCH, in my experience for the last 3 years with this company, is that genuinely people have values that align with the business, and that is something that the business actually looks for when they're recruiting talent. Do you actually align with the culture? Do you align with our values? And I think that that's so interesting. It's actually not necessarily about your credentials, but actually, what are your values? What do you stand by, offline and online? And I think that that's so beautiful. And I personally, admire the work that both of you are doing. And I think as long as we keep our finger on the pulse of what really matters, especially in the capacity that you two work in, I think FARFETCH can really be that platform for good. Okay, ladies, what is on your FARFETCH wish list? Selina?
So, Amina, as I'm talking to you, I've got another Amina on my wish list. I've got Amina Mohammed's snakeskin effect mules. And as you know, she does these amazing kind of heels, doesn't she? The kind of sculpted heel. And these ones are just a little bit crazy because they are neon yellow and they are kind of acid yellow snakeskin. I don't know what I would wear them with. So
wow, Selina, so unexpected.
Really?
You can't see anyone these days except for, sort of shoulders up. Yeah.
That's why they're in my wish list, because I don't know whether I want to display it in my background or do I want to wear them. But I just can't decide what I would wear them with, apart from just all black, right? But they're just amazing. They're just so wild. And I just thought I'd keep them on my wish list and see if actually in a couple of weeks, do I still want them? But yeah. That's what I've got on my wish list.
It's so funny, Selina. I just bought a pair of orange PVC Amina Mohammed's, and I said to myself, I live in Dubai. It's extremely hot. Why am I buying these? And I was so moved to get them because I thought, honestly, if I'm feeling bad one day and I don't like what I'm wearing, just throw on nice orange shoes and that should just change my mood. But Amina Mohammed's shoes, I can contest, are great, wonderful quality. She's from the Middle East region. Her mom is Romanian and Jordanian. So shout out to Amina. Okay,
see?
Coco.
Inspired by diversity.
So my wish list, well, it was on my wish list as of yesterday. It has now been moved to checkout and is on its way to me. But it's, I've actually been eyeing this rosy Celine dress, very sort of signature rosy with big billowy sleeves, off the shoulder vibe. I feel like dressing up these days. I feel like we deserve it. I sort of got sick of the sort of leisure sort of approach, what do you call it? Athleisure. I'm kind of taking a break from that for now. So hence we have gone all in with the rosy dress, which I will let you know how that pans out when it arrives on my doorstep in 2 days.
I was telling a friend of mine the other day, we're all getting ready to integrate back into society and we're coming back more fabulous than we left it a year and a half ago. So I'm here for everything on your wish list, ladies. I actually have a Chanel bag from the pre-owned collection in my wish list. So it's not at checkout yet. We'll get there.
I'm a big pre-owned buyer. So usually if we had asked sort of, what are you wearing today? It would have been pre-owned.
Thank you, Coco and Selina, today for joining our FARFETCH Threads episode. And thank you to everyone who's been listening. Please make sure to check out all of our previous episodes and see you next time.
See you next time. Thank you.
Thanks for listening. Make sure you never miss an episode of FARFETCH Threads by subscribing to our Spotify and FARFETCH People YouTube channel. If you're ready to do what's never been done, visit farfetchcareers.com.